As a part of our strategic move series, AdGalley is hosting a very interesting webinar on radio. Our topic today is Power of Radio and its effectiveness. Radio has been one of the oldest mediums which over the years has grown slowly, but in the recent past, the medium has become more dynamic and engaging with the audience. It is also delivering a good reach, and there are many brands who are leveraging it. There is a huge opportunity for brands to take advantage of this vehicle and talk to their audience. To gain some in depth industry perspective and views from the experts, we have a very interesting panel to share their views. Without taking further time, I would like to request Mr. Abraham Thomas, CEO Reliance Broadcast Network Limited, who will be moderating the session to kick off the webinar. With Abraham, we have Mr. L.V. Krishnan, CEO TAM Media Research, Rahul Namjoshi, Chief Operating Officer MyFM, Amit Dave, National Head Sales Strategy and Planning Red FM, Smita Murarka, VP Marketing and E-commerce Duroflex, Shaleen Patel, Business Development and Marcom, NK Proteins. I welcome you all. Have a good session. I'll catch you all at the end of the session.
Thank you.
You can pick it up from here.
Thanks, Vijaya, for your kind words. I'm extremely happy to be part of such a experienced and erudite panel, and I really look forward to an active and a fruitful discussion. Like one of the most common phrases we hear when we talk about COVID is how it's been a great leveler. It's impacted all aspects of our life, hasn't it? From being trying to figure out your own balance in your own individual lives to the kind of disruption it's caused in multiple businesses. Consumption habits have changed and will keep changing thanks to the effect of the pandemic. So media consumption habits have also changed. Very clearly, digital consumption has grown substantially. Television consumption has grown. Television consumption is primarily driven by news television because the other general entertainment genres have challenges of new production which got stalled due to the lockdown. And radio. Radio has actually seen a sizable jump both in terms of reach and in terms of the time spent on the medium. So before we jump into the discussion, I have a very short 3-slider which I thought I'd share with you so that you get a perspective on the growth of radio during this time. Can we have the presentation, please? So this study has been done, it was commissioned by the AROI, the All India Radio Operators Association. And this was done in 6 metros in the beginning of April. So very clearly, the reach of FM radio is 82% of people in these 6 metros, which is 51 million, tuned into radio during April during the lockdown. This is second to television, which had an 86% reach as per this study. The other aspect is that time spent listening actually grew by 30 minutes, which is almost 28% growth in the time spent. And this can be seen across all SECs. Across SECs, there is a pretty similar increase in the time spent on radio. Next slide. Yeah, this is one aspect of radio which consistently radio tops, which is in terms of the credibility of the medium. It's clearly one of the most trusted and credible media. And that's primarily driven by the fact that the radio industry has been extremely responsible and has actually taken their role of keeping people entertained and keeping people informed very seriously. So it's right up there, higher than television and print, the credibility of radio. And next slide, please. Yeah, so this is just a summary. This is all I have. A reach of 51 million in the 6 metros where television was 56 million. Average radio listeners spend time of upwards of 30 minutes per day was the increase in the time spent. 131 million total daily man hours. Time spent grew by 23%, and the place of listening to radio has shifted to in-home. Now, if you look at the other researches available, clearly the most, I think according to the IRS, 52% of the audience listens to radio on their mobile phone, followed by 35%, which listens to on transistor sets. 16% of the listening is happening in cars. So very clearly, the lockdown has actually, because of the high mobile listening, has just shifted in home. So in-home listening has actually grown in this period. So this is just to set a context for everyone. Before we get into our discussion, I want to hand it over to Rahul, who's got some interesting sounds for you all to hear.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Numbers always confuse a lot, and you presented a brilliant number, and that endorses the power of radio. So let's make it simple. Let's have the power of sound. Radio is basically a sound. If I can have those audios, if somebody's presenting those audios. Yeah. Let me make it a bit simple and a bit fun. Since radio is a power and a power of sound, and we always say that power of sound is basically remains in your mind. So we'll be playing some 7 audios, and let's take quick contest on the chat box. As soon as first audio is getting played, you are having 20 seconds of time. Just if you're able to recall the name of the brand or the campaign, just type in the chat box. So we'll have the interactivity on. So we are just playing 7 audios starting from the first one. Please, you need to make it full screen. Yeah. Wow, great. Some 20 odd response, and it's All India Radio. Yes, perfect. Next, please. Superb. So this is from 80s, and we still remember I can make out as soon as within a couple of seconds, people have started answering. That remains in mind. 80s Doordarshan news jingle. Amazing. Next one, please. Great.
Now you have given a very simple quiz to everybody. It's very simple. Everybody is flooding with the answers.
So Amit, people like one of the seminars when I presented these audios, people were saying that those days only Doordarshan was there. So these music remain top of the mind. So next 3 or 4 audios what we are going to play, these are from the recent past. So when you have the sub channel, you have the digital, you have many other things. Still, I'm sure, I'm confident answer will be as quick as the first 3 of them. Please go ahead.
Washing powder, Nirma. Washing powder.
You know, everybody would be looking forward to that girl dancing in this particular jingle. Though the name of the brand is there, but in their mind somewhere that white girl dancing must be, flashing back in their mind. So that's the best part.
Yes, Amit. Yes, perfect. The white dress also people are mentioning. Sangeeta Bijlani name is also coming. They still have the brilliant recall about that. Please next one.
जब घर की रौनक बढ़ानी हो, दीवारों को जब सजाना हो, लहरों लहरे
LV, are noticing within 3-4 second answers are coming. So not even 20 seconds. You know, this is the power of sound. The brand remains there in your mind. Next two are also pretty beautiful singers. Please go ahead.
चाय के लिए जैसे टोस्ट होता है ऐसे हर एक फ्रेंड जरूरी होता है शॉपिंग मॉल वाला शॉपिंग फ्रेंड कोई एग्जाम हॉल वाला कॉपिंग फ्रेंड मूवी वाली ग्रूवी वाली हाय वाली बाय वाली कॉम वाली फोक वाली गाना वाली शाम वाली चटी वाली यार वाली कुत्ते कमीने एवरीबॉडी सबबडी ए टू जेड गिन गिन के नाम भेजा रोस्ट होता है
Goes without saying, Airtel. Amazing. The last one. Good enough. So I think this sets the tone for the discussion. Power of sound. All right from 80s to recent past. Anybody can recall musical tune within a couple of seconds. Not even for, they don't have to wait even for 20 seconds. Please take it.
Thank you, Rahul. I think we can rest our case. We've demonstrated the power of radio. Getting back to the discussion, one of the first points we want to actually want all the participants to give their point of view on is on the role of radio during this entire pandemic. Over the last 100 days, radio has obviously done a lot to kind of reach out to their audience. And so have brands. Certain brands have actually done the same during this period. And I'm most excited because we have two clients on this panel who have actually led from the front and they made the most of this opportunity. So, Smita, would you like to begin on how brands have looked at media during this time of COVID?
Yeah, thanks, Abraham, and thanks, Rahul, for that interesting sound session. Brought back a lot of memories. I think, while COVID has definitely been the worst thing to have happened to us as humanity, as brands, I think the role of brands is to stay relevant throughout times. That is the purpose of a brand, right? Whether it's through its ups, through its downs, it needs to stay consistent, it needs to stay alive, and it needs to stay relevant. So for us at Duroflex, which is a brand which has been around for more than 55 years, we've been in the business of selling sleep mattresses as a product. It became even more important to connect with the consumers because we play the role of talking about sleep builds immunity and how this helps the current situation. So we did have a conversation which was very relevant for its times, and that's how we used advertising, content, communication across to really put that messaging across. In terms of media, I think behavior cannot be changed overnight. Of course, there are new mediums like digital, which are extremely critical and would grow. But there would be a combination of media which would happen, are already happening and would stay, in times to come. Radio as a medium, as you were mentioning, has become more of an in-house medium now. And it's definitely the behavior is very different in different states because as a country itself, we are quite diverse. If you see one of the states like Kerala, which is one of our very strong markets, it was an in-house medium and it has become a medium where the family comes together and really, listens to the programs on it. So it's become more of an in-house medium. I think what radio has also done is created a lot of influencers. So today, people come and listen to shows irrespective of where they are because of the kind of influencers. One of the product, which is Danish State, which is created in the beginning from radio, today is a sensation on Instagram. So I think radio is a great medium to create influence, and we're not only talking about advertising, but also influence for the conversation for your brand. Even brand representatives like me and peers can come in and we can really share our point of view. So it makes conversations very possible, which probably is a limitation of a lot of other medium. And that's something we try to do during the pandemic, doing it right now as well, participating in this session. So yeah.
Thanks, Smita. Shaleen bhai, would you like to go next?
Shaleen bhai, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Abraham. I would like to say is during lockdown also, we utilized radio as a medium very effectively to convey to all our customers and consumers that we are available because we fall under essential commodities. So we were available at the shelf and all our distributors were open so they can reach out. Besides that, we did a very good conversation with most of the RJs to convey that we are maintaining all the hygiene standards, sanitation required, and through them we posted a lockdown video also showing how our manufacturing facility is taking utmost care to give them a quality product. So that way we could communicate with most of the customers who could reach through the radio stations and their jobs, and we could convey to them that your brand, the trust that you put in our brand is available. And throughout the lockdown, we were trying to convey through radio, through television also, that we are there. So I think we were very probably we could communicate it through radio, and people were looking at radio as a medium for credible source of information, because there were lots of information flowing in from on digital, on social media, and so many news channels. So they were tuning into their station to hear to their favorite jobs on what is the real situation on ground in their city. So yes, so it was really good, and we've utilized radio as a medium in these 2 months very effectively.
Thank you, Shaleen bhai. So good to hear this. Next, I want to ask LV. LV probably has the most insights about media consumption, and he's probably one of the earliest spotters of insights and trends. So LV, how do you see radio both from a consumption point of view as well as from an addict's point of view?
It's been interesting the way advertisers have used, given the way audiences have reacted to a medium like radio. One of the first things that came across in the data was the consumption time increasing, which you also showed in your charts. On an average, around 10 to 12% growth in average consumption happening, and all of that growth happening in home, and specifically among women, said two things actually. One is that it was becoming a co-companion for personal listening of content. So unlike in television, which was where content was actually consumed by a whole family, here was a content that was getting consumed on a one-on-one basis between the listener and the station. The second is when I say companion, it's just not as a medium companion. When the individual is looking at in-home work happening, whether it's an official work being performed from home or housework being performed from home, she or he is looking at a companion who could keep her or him motivated during the worst period of times. And I think the content played a significant role over here. The RJ came across as a person compassionate with the individual listening or the listeners listening, and therefore enabled to communicate and bring down anxieties, which is the most biggest element of fear that was existing during the COVID times. Now, interestingly, there were advertisers who took advantage of this actually. One of the advertiser categories that I saw really emerging on radio strongly was personal loans. Given that this was a tough situation and spreading over 3 months, there were individuals who were losing their jobs or doing pay cuts because the organization was not making money. These guys are stepping in, or these organizations are stepping in and telling them the fact that, listen, here I am as a personal friend. If you think you want to, if you're having financial problems, network with us and we'll give you a personal loan. And that was one of the biggest categories that we saw on radio, exploiting the medium and for the benefit of the fact that they could connect with individual listeners very easily in nature. The second interesting category that I noticed was this entire aspect of anxiety. Television was addressing it from a content perspective, using mythologies as a way to bring down anxieties among viewers. Here, there was an interesting advertising category called the sugar confectionaries. Actually, we all know sugar brings down, incremental sugar brings down anxiety levels. And here, these advertisers were coming on at the right time, telling them the fact that here it is, consume our chocolates or other confectionaries, sweet confectionaries that would come in, and thereby bringing down anxiety levels. So it was a dual role that radio was playing, one through content through RJs, and second, of course, through advertisers who found relevant ways to communicate during this particular time.
What did I tell you guys? LB can always find an insight and find a trend from the data. The broadcasters themselves have done a lot, and which is what is reflecting in the kind of interest that the medium has generated. So Rahul, would you like to share some of the outreach stuff that your network did during this period?
So during the COVID period, people were locked down at home. There was no other choice. And apart from talking to the family members, friends, doing Zoom meeting, video conferencing, they need some me space and me time and me person one-on-one talk to someone. Here, radio played a big role. Though we could all of the station across India were live. RJs were doing show live from their home. So RJs were there available at any given point in time to interact with the listeners. And I can Amit can vouch, you can vouch. All of our RJs are getting so many calls, not only on the radio station number, the number which are WhatsApp number kind of thing. Our social media pages were flooded with a lot of one-on-one discussion type kind of thing. So here the radio was a buddy to them, the person sitting at home and he wants to vent out or he wants to discuss something personal kind of thing. So our RJs were there to discuss each and every topic what they want to do. Apart from that, social media message, the basic hygiene, wearing mask, sanitization, partnering with the government of India, message communicating that because the radio is the real-time media. So whatever the big message need to be communicated, radio was doing that with fluently 24/7, and almost it's more than 100 days. We all are working relentlessly. Our RJs, our programming team, they are doing their best. Apart from dealing with the message, the interesting contest is also going on. Something real, this happens in summer. And summer में सब लोग नानी के घर जाते हैं, मामा के घर जाते हैं. So most of the channel we did that activity is what kids can do sitting at home in the summertime. Schools are closed at times, so there are months vacation going around. So radio could able to engage kids also sitting at home. So many things. Radio is still probably one of the medium who is 24/7 and doing multiple things every hour. Have you mute? You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah. So there's so many heartwarming stories of how radio jockeys have gone beyond radio to actually connect people. So we have a case where someone in Bangalore, parents in Coorg couldn't get medicines. So he went out and he asked people, and then the medicines got delivered in a few hours to the listener's parents somewhere in Coorg. So multiple ways that jocks have gone out of the way to connect the audiences with authorities, with their near and dear ones. Amit, would you like to add to this?
Outreach? Yeah, so I mean, I would just add to what Rahul said. I think one of the biggest role that we all played was that we were a credible information provider for everybody. Everyone knew that radio is operational. Radio is just nearby. It's very close, and they will give us the most credible information. Definitely, the government also, gave us the task to spread the public awareness and spread the messaging about this entire pandemic. One critical part that we all did was to keep our listeners entertained and to give the stress, to bring down the stress level of people. I think that was something very big. And then the second important part was to connect into this time with the society and give back to them by being partner with some of the social activities. I mean, be it the concert, digital concert, the Care Corona concert, like we did. There were other initiative taken by other players also. We were all bringing in entertainment to home with a cause. We were trying to bring a smile on the face of that listener who was otherwise stressed, who didn't know that what is going to come next. And doing all this, it was not about it was not about the business. I mean, it was more about going to the listener, telling him that yes, this is what radio can do for you. And that's what added to the whole thing. Radio was as such seen as a credible medium. It built upon that credibility because the RJs, every city, the local RJs, be it of any station, they are biggest influencers. They talk in the city's own colloquial, I mean, lingo, and they tell the people that what is it all about. They were connectors between the administration and the society, the help givers and the help seekers. They were the ones who connected those basic things. And I think that's what happened. And a lot of advertisers joined us in this initiative. They all came forward and said, if you want to use us, please let us know. We would like to collaborate with you or contribute into the mission that you are taking forward. So I think that's what radio did. And the best part is, it was all through air. I mean, it was all on air, it was all through air, and there were no disruption. There were no disruption in supply. There was no disruption in distribution. There was no disruption at any level. So I think that's where the radio played a very significant role.
Absolutely. Just to add to that, I think radio across all networks, we played a big part in also ratifying fake news. We'd
Absolutely.
creative to say that we will confirm it for you, so don't believe WhatsApp forwards and don't believe rumor mongering that's happening. And Amit, you're right. I mean, radio is one medium which was creating live content 24/7 through the entire pandemic. We didn't have any disruption because of the lockdown or like some of the other media. Okay, moving on. This is a question of interest to all of us. Is that as the economy revives, that is becoming our biggest challenge right now. We have, as the government has done a lot of steps to kind of ease the supply side of the business. They're extending more credit, restructuring loans, and a lot of other facilities so that manufacturers, SMEs can actually get down to reviving their businesses which have been hit. On the demand side, there is a need to actually stimulate this demand. And advertising has historically and can play a very important role in the revival of the economy. Right? So I'll start with Shailene by this time. Shailene, what is your thinking of how can advertising revive the economy and what role can radio play in this?
See, for our category, which is the edible oil, and it was an essential product. So for these April, May and June months of lockdown, there had been a lot of panic buying. So people had started buying it, and it was a consumer pull that was there. But post the first quarter, when we enter into July, August, September, advertiser would need to get on board and advertise for their brands for the consumers to pick up one from the shelf, right? Till now, it was a lot of consumer pull that was there, but brands even need to push it from the second quarter onwards when the demand slows down. So to pick that up, they will have to advertise on radio, on different platforms. So that is how they would be able to, get the stocks moving.
Smita, your point of view?
Yeah, I think Shailene made a very important point that you still need to push your story across. And I'll add to that, in today's times when there's so much clutter of brands and it's only going to increase, right? It's important, first you make a good product or good content, but then you also need to push it out there, right? You need to tell your story, and that's the role of advertising. Advertising is also in two forms. One, as I said, content and what you're about, and the other is actual push of sales. So I think the combination of medium is going to be critical. How you choose your media mix, understanding every media's role is very important, because you cannot have one size fits all, while making your media mix. So I think radio definitely plays a crucial role in many things. One, using their influencers to really push genuinity of topics and content. The other is, your actual product pricing, sales, offers. It's a great medium that we've used in the past to push that communication versus just replicating your TVC and putting that out there. So I think the crucial task is on us as brand managers to really understand the media mix and use each medium to its full potential.
I feel radio has one more beautiful opportunity here. Since the all India is in a different state-wise, city-wise, the challenges are different right now. There are certain cities which are still struggling. There are certain market which has opened up. There are certain market which are partially opened up or maybe 80% open up. And radio gives this beauty. You can pick and choose the market-wise plan. You can, as an advertiser, you can design your plan depending upon which market you are focusing, how market is open or not open, and what kind of depth it is. So radio gives this opportunity, pick and choose. That's the beauty of radio.
Amit, you want to add to that?
Yes, so I think I want to add just a very and to what Shaleen Bhai and Smita said. I think we were critically utilized during these times also, that every different market could in that every different market we could communicate a different message. Depending upon my supply in that particular market, I was able to plan my strategic advertising or my requirements which were there. That's how the advertisers also came forward from the various pharma or the BFSI category, or from the other categories which were there, like the owner-driven FMCG organizations largely. This helped, and the government, most importantly the government, the message was in local lingo, the message was spreading to a larger audience in the way they understand about it. And we did a lot of interactivity. We brought a lot of people on air in the forms of the interaction with the RJs, also in the forms of their digital content, which was spread through the digital assets of the various radio players on the social media like Facebook, Instagram, and people were able to communicate not only the solutions, or they were able to give certain solutions which were like stress busters again, because being in home isolated with some specific set of people, everybody wanted something different to be there. And I think that's where the radio played a very critical role, and we will continue to play, because now what is happening is that radio is not only the radio, it is beyond radio, it is going into the digital. We are all content creators, we are getting into the various aspects of creating the various communication. As it was said that one size can't fit all, the radio communications are now being designed specifically for the radio. They are not the cut and paste or the copy from the other formats kind of a thing. And that's the good progression that is happening in the advertising.
Absolutely. LV, the last word. How can radio help revive the economy?
There's a very interesting statistics that I was going through some time back. In India, almost around 18% of our GDP is run by migrant contribution to the economy. And in a market like Mumbai, which is around close to 20 million population, almost around close to 30% of them are migrant population, which means around 6 million of them, 5 to 6 million of them. Now, when they shifted out of the city sometime in May, that's when the dip started happening in terms of consumption. And for them, there are two big elements actually. One is that they're a daily consumer of product. It's not that they buy stocks, keep it at home, and then consume over day-to-day basis in nature. They buy constantly on a daily basis. So in other words, among the 4 segments of spenders in a particular marketplace, they are a continuous spender in terms of goods in nature. And for them, there are 2 companions from media perspective. One is radio, the other one is digital. because the mobile keeps them activated and connected with their families back home. And at a time when they have leisure or spare time, basically the only other medium that they can listen to is radio in Asia. So when this population starts moving back into the main city, so today, for example, given that 6 million of them, out of that probably around 60 to 70% of them have migrated back to their town places, which is basically UP and Bihar, the economy's fulcrum has shifted. It's no longer the big cities or like Bombay and Delhi where the consumption is huge. The consumption point has shifted to a market like UP and Bihar in Asia. And buoyancy in that market, you will see that in the data in August, September, when the results from Nielsen retail audit data comes out. So as long as marketeers have channelized their products into those markets and been advertising on platforms in that particular market, local market, yes, the economy has revived already, actually. As far as the big city is concerned, we lately, just today, I think I saw a item in one of the newspapers talking about the fact that the bookings from trains emerging from UP and Bihar back to Mumbai are full 100%. There are people on wait list actually, and that is going on till June 30th in Asia. So till June 30th, there are no tickets available. That means that the migrant population has started coming back into the city and trickling in. And as that starts happening, the city's economy will also start bouncing back. So that's why I say again, the fact that August, September is the right peak time for consumption to happen, simultaneously hitting back on that with advertising too in these cities.
Wow, very interesting. We are seeing signs of that very clearly. Like Rahul said, the hyper-local reach of radio works for both new brands who are trying to launch new categories and new products and get their products sampled, to old brands who can drop market share without realizing it. So radio definitely can kind of play a big part in this aspect. And like Oliver have been saying, which comes to my next point of discussion, it's no longer radio alone, but it's radio plus. So my question to y'all is radio plus digital the new normal? And Amit, would you like to have a go at it first?
Yes, thank you. I mean, this is my favorite subject, and I'm sorry if I'll take some longer time than everybody else, because yes, this is it. Because as I said, we are all content creators. Nobody create more content than what we are creating. We are, I mean, with 68 stations of ours, 57 stations of Big, Mid, Cheap, My FM, everybody. There are, I mean, kind of content that we are creating. I think it's humongous, and it's all the more entertaining. It's not a very static or very boring content. It's very dynamic. And one important thing which radio delivers is the stickiness, which is into the non-music content. That's something which is unique to us between other OTT platforms or on-demand apps that you are seeing. And I think they are also lining up with us. They are aligning with us. We are co-promoting each other, just because if they are relying more on the music content, the non-music content creators are what we are basically, where our RJs are there who are influencers, be it our podcast, be it our social media reach, be it our influencers activity that we do, or I mean, as new as something when recently on Muthoot, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan came and spoke about it as a podcast, as a anthem which was created by a radio station, or a digital concerts that we have been doing. So, you know, that myth that radio doesn't deliver when it comes to the performance marketing. There was somebody who was talking about, who has raised a question about the performance marketing also. I'll tell you that while radio provides the reach, digital brings that interactivity, that analytics which is there, and a combination of radio plus digital gives you what everybody can really measure in the quantifiable terms also, because there are engagements. Radio leads to the engagement. The RJs, they don't only get the likes or the shares, they get the interactions, they get engaged into the within a week. RJ starts getting almost 100,000 to 500,000 kind of a reach, which is what radio is providing. And most importantly, these cities where we are talking about, where a big FM or my FM or a red FM or a Mirchi is present in the smaller places, we are taking that technology, we are taking that availability to the last advertiser who can think of creating his small digital creative also along with the radio, because the people are available to him who can think about it. We have got the, I mean, almost all of us radio stations have some of the best creative brains around, and that's what we are able to leverage. So, in the times as now, when advertiser would be looking at the cost optimization, he would be looking at the resources nearby him, and resources nearby him would be definitely coming at a economical cost, but with the same quality or the standards that he would have to otherwise source from a bigger place. And that's where he will try to optimize the whole thing. And I think that's the requirement that we fill in. And you see, in the times of now, we have all gained our footprints on the digital, be any of the players, they've all gained a lot on the digital platform also. We all have increased our presence, we all have become more interactive on digital, and our followers, our likes, our interactions, they all have gone substantially up. I mean, that's the kind of power that radio brings, because it is bringing the, it is basically, no medium can survive in isolation, but when it blends with the radio, that frequency, that reach multiplier effect, you will see, that is what we bring to the table. I think that's what is my I mean, take on this entire thing. So we are not a radio station now, we are basically more than that.
Sure. Rahul incidentally is the happiest in this group, because he drives growth through the emerging markets, and the bigger markets are obviously taking longer to revive as compared to the smaller markets. And Rahul, how does this radio plus digital play work for you?
So I will share one very interesting case study. Before COVID, no one would have imagined product launches happening digitally. All the project, that was especially in automobile category. Automobile product launches are a big zing bang theory, lot of shosha and gathering, big spends, and they have their own way of launching products. Recently, in Maharashtra, one of the tractor brand launched with us digitally. They did their product launch digitally with our brand on the radio plus digital space. So that's the change of time what we are saying. So radio plus digital thing is working brilliantly if we are giving a genuine solution to the advertiser to their challenges. Like COVID time product launch, the new product was there. Of course, distribution was in place, getting in place. So they need to launch and express their USPs, the showcase the USP, feed of the sample drivers and kind of thing. So that everything is done on radio plus our social media page, and it has given them the brilliant mileage, and that activity is now getting repeated with some other brand also. So that's the one learning what we are seeing. The product launches are happening digital plus radio combination. That's one thing. Second thing, what Amit is mentioned, ki all the brands need some endorsement or some brand ambassador, and in the smaller market there is no bigger ambassador, brand ambassador than the radio jockeys. They are having a brilliant social media presence. Their words are taken for the taken positively. If they are saying something, people are going to listen, and they have their space over a period of time. They have built up their reputation. So these two things, the people, our brands can ride on the popularity of our RJs, and we have the opportunity of doing multiple things with the product. Product launches are one thing, product endorsements are one thing, highlighting the USPs of the product one thing. The showrooms after the lockdown, when the showrooms or retail shops are opening up, they used our social media page to show how well they are sanitized, how they are safe for the customers. Our customer can walk in very safely, and how the dealing is happening, what the backhand is doing them. So it's a going hand in hand right now.
LVL, are there any performance measurements on radio plus digital? I know a lot of brands have been using this, but are there something that you can throw light on?
Just before I go to the performance part of it, I just want to elaborate on one of the very interesting category that I noticed during month of May and June. It was a category called local medical stores, pharmacies. Usually, they are guys who have rarely been on mass media, been digital to a certain extent, and that's it actually. But during this COVID phase, there was a huge push that they had between digital and radio. And what they've been doing basically is connecting with the house members on the radio, talking about some of the services that they can actually provide, specifically the e-commerce medical stores, and then allowing the app to be available to them so that they can place the order instantly post listening. So when we look at, therefore, in link with the performance marketing, that's one way to look at how many people responded back to clicking on the app post listening to the ad or a communication on a radio platform. And over there is a very interesting statistics that I came across which is around saying the fact that close to 1.8% in a city like Mumbai converted into clicking the app and placing an order in it. So that tells you the fact that what kind of conversion is happening to these kind of communication too. Apart from that, there are quite a bit of brand track studies that we've done on campaigns that have happened on radio, along with campaigns that have happened on digital. And I don't see major variation between both in terms of sheer communication vis-a-vis top of mind recall for the brand, or bringing the brand into the consideration set for purchase, or even making a first purchase attempt in nature. So in the case of radio, for one of the shows that happened, in fact, we did it for Big FM itself, pretty popular morning show hosted by Starcast. And we saw pretty good top of mind for the sponsors coming from two markets on which the study was done. One was a metro and one was a smaller town. And the growth rate between say sponsorship of the program and post sponsorship of the program, the jump was almost in the range of around 16% for the brand top of mind. And when I come down to other metrics of brand performance for campaigns on radio, if I look at the intention to purchase, that needle moved up by around 11%, and first purchase of the brand itself moved by around 6.5%. So from a brand perspective, the medium is certainly delivering in nature. Okay? But again, it depends upon what is the unique communication that they're doing and how competitive they are in the marketplace in terms of distribution and pricing in nature. For brands, in the past studies that we have done for the brands which have very clear, distinct messaging exercises along with the medium that they use powerfully for communication purposes, you have seen needles for top of mind scores and brand concentration scores growing up by almost around 20+% actually. And that's a big jump. That is devoid of a video, and it's only looking at video and text. Text when I say digital in nature. Okay. So these parameters indicate the fact that the medium is definitely performing in nature. It's up to the brand how they utilize it in combination with what is available in the surround sound, whether it's an advertorial mix with an RJ or whether it's an additional sales push through the digital that combines with the audio platform.
But what is seriously gives you that
We are not able to hear you properly. There is a voice. Your voice is cracking. If you can just adjust your laptop or something, some data issue, I think. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better, much better. Please
Okay. So radio plus digital offers that advantage of being able to actually track the delivery of the campaign. Continuing on this question, Smita, in today's day of TikTok and local, hyper-local, micro-local influencers, all radio networks have a minimum of 100, 150 influencers across all these markets, right? Somewhere I think we are guilty of using them as value adds, not really realizing the true value that their word carries and the impact it can have in amplifying a message. So how do you look at influencer marketing for radio generating its true value?
Yeah, as Amit was mentioning, I think radio goes beyond music, and it has been across decades creating a lot of content which is authentic and real. Between digital and radio, the consumer behavior is very similar, where it's a more personalized, more they feel very close to the medium, right? Whether it's the RJ speaking or whether they're consuming an Instagram content. So I think the behavior across these two medium is very similar, and therefore they go hand in hand very well. On Instagram, it's the face of the influencer, for example, where she's actually visible, she or he, and on radio, it's the voice. So I think that combination is very powerful. Better effectiveness of radio is probably the new normal, where radio channels themselves build both these equally, and brands are able to utilize it effectively. Versus using personal channels of the influencers. As you said, probably we've undermined the potential of using this from the station point of view. In terms of creating micro influencers, I think this phenomenon is not only digital or radio, it's across, right? I think our buying behavior on e-commerce, the way we are understanding data, it's becoming very word of mouth. Today, a lot of businesses shifting to WhatsApp marketing, where Facebook and Reliance have also tied up. So everything is getting very personalized, it needs to be very authentic. It cannot be really a brand push. So as I said earlier, whether we are advertisers, we still need to push something good as a product or content. And similarly, the medium also, radio channels need to continue to keep themselves relevant, create content which is very relatable. Some of the examples that were stated were excellent on how they connected with people in today's times and talking about COVID zones and giving them information. So I think that should continue and amplify. And for us as brand owners, custodians, it's going to be really an honest medium as a combination that we can utilize.
Right. Shailene bhai, your take on, you've already mentioned the importance of the credibility of the radio jockey and how he or she can actually calm or assure the audience and all that. So what's your take on this whole radio plus digital?
See, we've always utilized radio not just as radio, but radio plus activation. And now it goes beyond, like radio plus digital. I'm sure, once the RJs are able to get their listeners on digital platform, brands can utilize that digital assets to make them reach to their marketplace, or this is how the performance marketing they can drive through from there. So I'm sure you got to radio will be able to realize the potential of the digital platform in the times to come, and it will really be an added advantage for the brands.
Right. I think. Yeah,
I just wanted to add in this this thing about the digital platform and radio, the synergy which both of them create is. I mean, radio has given that it has moved activation from activation BTL on ground to the digital now. So what Rahul was mentioning, the product launches happening on the digital where the activation is very critical. Radio has been able to to bridge that gap and take the activations online more effectively and seamlessly. I mean, it is very easy transition that radio has provided. In last 2 months, we have seen small events and activations taking place almost with everybody, and everybody would have done it, especially in the FMCG, automobile, and these kind of category, which were activation heavy and which were looking forward to such ideas. So yes, radio is bridging that gap. The key to that success is our local influencers, the RJs, the content that we do on the radio, the way they drive their fan following, the way they build the trust amongst their listeners, and the way they connect very locally. I think that's where radio leverages its strengths to the brands. And it is on the brands that how they come to us, and it is on us that what kind of creative concepts we give to the brand to take that strength from us and leverage to their brands. I think that's what the crux of the this entire radio plus digital, I would like to put it as.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. I just wanted to deep dive on one aspect. While radio plus digital includes audio digital, which is web radio and on-demand radio, to podcasts. Now, there's a lot of interest in talent specifically and across brands as well as creators for podcasts globally. It's still very early days, even globally, for podcasts, but podcast is showing a lot of growth because it gives you a very engaged listener who's now committed to listen to that podcast for like 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And therefore, the CPM that a podcast commands is 10x of what a live digital radio spot will think. So what does the panel think about audio podcasts and the way forward for that?
So
Yeah,
I will take this. In last 6 months, we created at least 2 such shows which went on air also and on the digital platform also as a podcast. And they were you rightly mentioned that it's a 10x kind of thing. So those were the 15-16 minutes story. And it got a tremendous traction on the digital platform as well as the radio also. We were a bit surprised that was 8 minutes, 2 chunks back to back with a small 2 minutes break. But that got brilliant traction, and we run 50 episodes of that story. That's the early indication of that podcast is going up. Even on radio, beyond music, what Amit was mentioning, these kind of real stories going, or the fact check of the 1980s, 90s, or some brilliant packaging stuffs. That's the real need of the hour. You have to be, but it need to be packaged very well. That you need to be very careful about that.
LV, any pearls of insight that you can throw on the podcast play?
I think it's a very early stage in which the podcast in this country is in. And as it mushrooms to a bigger level with more audiences coming in, I don't see any reason why advertisers will not also ride that bandwagon. The only aspect that we need to keep in mind over here is that unlike a radio, which is a one-way kind of a medium to a large extent, podcast is largely two ways. That is, it's pulling audiences into the content for specific reasons in nature. And they do not want to be disturbed with advertising to that extent. So that's why you see, for example, a streaming service like an audio streaming service like a Saavn or a Gaana having a premium service without advertising and one with advertising in nature. So probably podcasts will also move into that arena where you get a large set of audiences and they get bifurcated into 2 parts, where the real good quality podcast content actually goes into subscription mode in nature, while your generic content, which is a duplication of content with the radio station beaming in, will probably be a advertising funded one. And that advertising will crisscross both radio platform as well as broadcast platform as a sponsorship of a content rather than actually choosing a platform in nature. So you may be on your website, you may be on your portal, you may be with that content, and you may be on your radio station too. And all the three areas, the presence of the advertiser is continuing to be there because it's associated with that particular content.
Right. I think we are running out of time. We can actually talk for another hour on the different aspects of this medium. We have a lot of questions and we may not have time for all of them, but let me pick up one question that we can address. How can radio, this is from Nikhila Dave, how can the medium transform itself to become a ROI-driven choice for B2B marketers? Her observation is that radio has not seen too much innovation for the B2B marketer. So how can radio become an ROI-driven choice for B2B marketers? LV, would you like to take that?
Sure, we can. There is recently, I ran out of ink on my printer cartridges. So I was just wondering, how do I go about placing an order when there was when in the background, after a few hours, probably I was playing some music, and in between, I heard this jingle the announcement from HP saying their online stores is open in nature. So what it did was it automatically helped me to browse onto the HP platform and place an order for the cartridge. Obviously, they didn't deliver it immediately, but it took me around 3 weeks to get it. But what it did was it connected me to an issue that was pertaining in the home and to an equipment, which I usually use it in the office. But given the office has shifted to home, it was getting utilized at home. So somewhere a campaign on a radio connected me back to an office equipment that usually goes into a B2B kind of an exercise. In this kind of a transition exercise between what you consider as a workplace and what you consider as a home space, I think this is the best chance for radio to grab a piece of the B2B properties, as much as it has the best chance to grab a bit of the monies, not from advertising pie, but from the below the line activities in nature. Because if you look at that, the other angle, the below the line, which is again to a certain extent a B2B activity in nature between a retailer and a organization, there is a very little traffic movement going into the shops as of now. And even if you're supposed to go to the shop, you have to stand in a line for around 15-20 minutes time, and only then you have a short time to shop inside the shop too. So on the other hand, given the fact that most of the shops now have a link, Google link, or probably even an app, like the pharmacies are having, you're now connecting back into that particular shop through an app. Now for organizations where earlier they were spending money on in-shop branding with POPs and danglers hanging around the shops, that's sufficed completely, given the customer flow is very negligible in nature. So automatically that should move to a medium like radio and digital, and making that announcement to go to a nearest HP shop, or making a notification saying that you can order it through the HP app itself and it will be delivered through you from your nearest shop, is again a diversion of B2B money being spent into mass media in nature.
Thank you so much, LV. We're really out of time. It's been a really enriching session. I have a lot of takeouts out of this. Thank you so much, LV. Thank you. So more power to you, Smita and Shailin Bhai. Lead us out of this revival, the approach that you've taken towards advertising and building your brand. And thanks, Amit, passionate as always. Thank you, Rahul, for this time. Over to you, Vijaya.
Thank you, Abe, for moderating such a wonderful session. I think, as you just said, we can carry on for another couple of hours, but we'll take this thing again, maybe in next couple of weeks, and talk more about the way radio can become much more effective medium. Thank you, everyone. Thank you everyone for being a part of this and taking time on a Saturday evening for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, all of you all. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, LV. A pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rahul. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.